was fun as hell, the whole thing, from the environment. It was a good team win. I was so impressed by our offense on the last drive to see Amari on the big play to get down there, and then I thought the third down one to Zeke, was such a cool play. You're in the press box thinking, okay, we could be in 4 minutes. All right, now we're good, look like a tie, and then they get the first down on that one, and now you're going, in a totally different way to say, okay, now they got to go the whole way. And I thought just those two plays, I thought first one to Zeke and the second one to Mari for the touchdown was such a cool thing. So when you're in the box, you're kind of out of the emotion, so you're just kind of processing, okay, what's next? And I was just so impressed by them at the end. It was a good team win. It was fun as hell, and it was just fun to be in that environment with the guys. So with that, we'll let it rip and answer some questions regarding the game.
Talk about your third down defense was such a big factor in last night's game. Just what you were able to do there and how the guys responded to the situations they were in.
And I think really the credit goes to the guys in the secondary. That's the third down and what we call during the week and how we go, and that's Joe Witt and Al, and that's part of their responsibilities goes to the game plan. And sometimes you think, hey, we're going to get this many pressures, this is how we're going to go, and then other teams want to block those and try to get on the outside, and you change course on them a little bit and maybe play some more four-man rush and not blitz as much. So it was one of those games where we changed some on the fly, and but I think really the credit, like most times, goes to the players and them adjusting and being ready to get rocking. But I just thought the planning, especially by Al and by Joe on the passing game. This is an explosive offense, both in the run game and the pass game. So I think going in, knowing what to expect and how to play was going to be a big part of it. And I give those guys and along with the players a lot of credit.
Micah Parsons had began the first rookie NFL history with 10 tackles and 4 tackles for loss. Last week he talked about he didn't have a good game against New England. He came back and came in earlier, doing more preparation. Did you see that? And just talk about his performance and how he grew over the last week.
I did see that. In fact, because I get in pretty early, and so I turned around, I saw him walking in next to me. I said, okay, what do we got going on here? And he said, I'm changing some things. I want to get, and I said, I love it, man. So learning, it never stops. And certainly when you're a rookie, it's always going to be there. And I think part of learning how to correct yourself on some things, I need to do this a little different and this better and this tweaked it. And so he did that. I think that goes a long way into, when you're trying to improve, one of the best things you need to learn how to do is, put a process together. Like, what is that step-by-step going to look like? It's not just, hey, I'm just going to wake up earlier. It's to do what when you get here and what are the processes. And so, I knew when he got to the game, when you just feel that ready, I said, where did that come from? It was from the week. And I said, so it's no surprise, that you're going to play well. And he certainly did.
How do you balance letting a young player come to that realization on his own versus getting to a point where you need to say, hey, look, you need to
I think it's a little bit of both, because not everybody learns in the exact same way. What could take you 5 minutes to learn it and study it might take me 30 minutes just by the process of I have to go. So I would say, like most things, it's not one size fits all, but this is a really bright guy, so he can pick up things quickly. Obviously, we wouldn't have put him into so many packages and do different things if he wasn't able to do that. So sometimes just taking your own time to watch tape and do things, and you just got to go through it a little bit. If there was a issue where I didn't think he was putting in work, I would say, okay, just come meet me at this time, and we'll go through this together. And trust me, there's been plenty of those meetings, through the years with me. This was not that case. This was a player I want to do a little more and finding the balance for himself to do that.
Several players mentioned after the game the no excuse mentality y'all try and have as a defense. It's easy to say, but what's the key to getting guys to buy into it, and what does that look like on the field?
I think knowing what I was going to refer to earlier was a little bit of like, there's going to be some adversity in every game. And when it comes, how do you respond and how do you answer for it? And so I thought having the mindset, calling on that mindset, there's going to be some plays, but you're going to come back and fight. And I thought, what a good example of that. There was penalties on some drives that extended ones, but didn't mean they had to score. It just means, okay, they got 15 yards or 10 yards, and now we got to go reset and play it again. But I was impressed by their mindset collectively to say, we're going to stand up, we're going to make the whatever call we need to make, whatever change we need to make. And I've been impressed by that with their resilience, because sometimes in a game plan, it just doesn't flow that way of the game. Like people have done their own self-scouting and they may want to try a different blueprint. And as you get into the game, I think one of the most important things for a coach to have is like, okay, this shit ain't working. We got to try something else. And when those moments come, you better be able to adjust and adapt. And that's with this group of guys, they're able to do that. And I think certainly I felt that in the second half. There was a number of drives, and they just kept going to battle for it. And it was just a game that you thought was going to fight all the way to the end. That's what made it so much fun and so exciting to be a part of.
The last drive is an example of that, when you have these penalties and they're moving down, and then it's, okay, you have 2 straight, 3 straight maybe negative plays, and you force them to kick the field goal.
Right. And so when those ones happen, just because they got, down the field, and I think Basham had 1, Randy had 2, and when it goes that way, you almost just have to reset. And if you bitch about the last play, it's certainly not going to help you on the next play. And so, yeah, it's a first down, and how are we going to go about it from here? And those are moments that you have to kind of go through to learn and fight your way through it. And being in the tough, close games, there's things you gain from it. And they don't always go according to exactly how you want. Like, certainly we didn't want 3 penalties on the, potentially, game, changing drive. But when they happen, you still have to be able to, have the ability to fight back and go. And I was certainly impressed by the group on that.
What did you think of the tackling that your team had? And not just Micah, but it seemed like there was a lot of plays where a guy would catch a ball, but there wouldn't even be a hesitation. They would get the guy down right away. And then also with that, how do you work on that in practice? Because I know there's only so much that you can do in terms of hitting like that.
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to that, and I'll explain why. One, from a technique standpoint on tackling and tracking and owning a leverage to tackle somebody, and you can work that in practice. It doesn't mean you're going to take the guy to the ground, but it does mean, are you approaching the tackle with the correct leverage? And when you're playing against a back like Cook, who can jump cut so quickly, I might be head up or just have the right leverage, and all of a sudden he jumps and now I miss the tackle. That's when the relentless pursuit has to take over. If I miss a tackle, the next guy, because how hard he's running to go, can make up for a misfit or a mishit that happens. And that part I certainly felt it from Donovan. I saw it from Malik. I saw it from KZ. And oftentimes that's the safety who has to be, hey, man, this is the last person of the line of defense, and it has to go down on those terms. But the relentless style of over-the-top effort and speed, that helps. But it starts off usually with a leverage and a tracking. And we're improving in that area and tackling. And if you're going to play good defense, whatever team you're on in the NFL, you better be a good tackling team. There's so many good space players and space plays that get called that the ball is going to be out in space, and what are you going to do when that moment comes?
Well,
Go ahead, back here.
Justin Hamilton plays a position where his name doesn't get called too often, yet it seems like we call it when he gets the opportunity. What kind of conversation is he forcing, if any, in regards to elevations and, because he's out of those?
Right. And I think one thing that it doesn't maybe show up on the stat sheet, but like a forced holding penalty. It may not show up as a tackle or as an assist, when you just see the big stat book that we all get. But those are parts of the game that's a big-ass play, where it now went to 2nd and 18 or 2nd and 20. So we've always been impressed, and I thought, Justin keeps continuing to improve. And, when you have those moments and you deliver on them when they come, then, yeah, your name gets brought up in those conversations, as it should.
Randy Gregory told us a couple weeks ago that he feels he relies too much on his speed and power in his bull rush. As a coach, how do you balance trying to maximize a player's strengths, but also trying to expand their pass rush arsenal to keep offensive linemen guessing? Yeah,
I think that's part of usually almost the analogy as like a pitcher. And as a pitcher, sometimes if you had, I got a great fastball and over, but eventually, people can time on that and get it. And so what's the alternate pitch that you throw? Is it a changeup or I throw a curve? That's something that's different, that looks the same. And so most often as pass rushers, you want the approach to look the same. So I'm out on the edge, ripping off the edge, and I'm going right at the player. Am I going to bull him or am I going to chop him? And so for me, like I said, I've learned a lot from players through the years. And one of the things I picked up from Dwight Freeney through the years, he was only 6'1" and 260, so he wasn't the tallest, but man, he could power. And then as just about when he was going into power, boom, spin. And so the player was ready for power, and here came the spin, but they looked identical. And so whatever your counter is, it has to look just the same as your initial one. So if Randy is on the bull, that's good, because eventually the tackle says, I'm not going to get bulled, I'm going to sit down. And now you can swipe a hand off or hit something that works better. So I've been impressed by him. We're always, kind of talking about, we call those tracks, being on your track and hitting your moves, and he's certainly doing a good job with that.
What's your message to him about the penalties?
I think you want to play aggressive, and ones that are aggressive fouls, what we call like combative fouls, sometimes you can't, that's part of the nature of the game. What we can avoid are pre-snap ones where you would, jump off sides or, trying to pull a guy off a pile, those kind of things. So those we can use, our judgment when we can. The things we want to try to avoid are ones that are the one, hey, I'm not going to pull the guy off. I'm not going to, try to get an unsportsmanlike at the end of the play. During a play, when you're letting it rip, I want him to be really aggressive.
Anthony Brown certainly has got a lot of attention. Can you talk about his growth this season? Certainly had the bad plays early, but he's been pretty solid lately.
Yeah, I think also I think one of the plays might have happened against Tampa that it looked like it was his. And if you remember, I said, no, actually there was supposed to be a player over the top and someone else fell. And so he got caught looking like it was not going to be to him. But I would say one of the things I really admire about Anthony is his consistency. And he just consistently does the right thing. Early in the game, down in the red zone, they tried to reverse. It was going to reverse pass. And so Thielen, as he's coming off the line, Anthony didn't buy on, okay, it's going to be a run. He stayed consistent. He guarded the guy up the field. It's never going to show up in the stat sheet, but it just speaks to how consistent that he is to say, here's my job. I'm going to do it right over and over and over again. Because, consistency is not the sexiest word, but it's done just because you're doing the right thing over and over and over. And we really admire that about AB because out on the edge, it's tough. There's all sorts of different styles of players to go against and different speeds and tall receivers, who are strong and want to push, and fast ones who don't want any contact but want to make you miss. And there were two plays in the end of the game that I really stood out to me as good plays when they didn't have any tackles left, and Anthony went and tackled the guy's outside leg in a 2-minute where the clock's going. If you remember, a similar play happened in Tampa in the opening game, and Gronkowski was able to get out of bounds, which could have took another 18 seconds off it. And so when you see a play go from the beginning of the year to now, and it's almost a similar play, I was really happy for him. And Jordan had a similar one on the other sideline. And so when there's 50-some seconds left and they don't have any timeouts and the clock keeps winding, that's a really big play. Because in normal football, you use the sideline, okay? Sideline is great for tackling, and you work them right in there, not in a 2-minute where you got chances to go. And I thought, what a good example for AB and Mr. Consistency of, hey, this is the moment, I'm going to go nail it this time.
You have a lot of aggressive players here, a lot of new players through the draft and free agency, but with Micah and Trayvon being younger players, the passion they play and the level that they're playing, how does that help you kind of change the culture or set the tone and the attitude of what you want to do?
Well, I think, leadership and culture comes from a lot of people, and so all of us are, as you're starting in the spring and going through training camp, you're just trying to learn the players and feature on the things that they do well. And so that was part of the learning process with Trey and with Micah, and how do we fit Kiki in, and what's Malik going to do when he comes back to get healthy, and now Donovan's back in. And so finding all the unique roles that a player has, to me, that's what builds the defense. And that's what excites me about this group, because now we're starting to, you're seeing those roles happen. And so for us to have that play out on the games, that's a really big deal to us. And we're going to continue to try to work the things on the guys that they do really well and over again. Now, sometimes the play time won't be exactly the same from game to game based on what the offense has. So, I wouldn't try to read in too much on, well, he played less last game and more this game. Sometimes we're just featuring guys in different ways.
You're excited about Neville and D-Law and Tristan coming, or is that something to worry about? You're excited about it because then you got to worry about playing time.
No. I will take that. That is not a problem. Trust me, I'm excited for that, and only to have D-Law for one game, and I thought in his one game at Tampa, he was really violent, excellent, hustling, going, and so we've worked really hard with Nev, so for him to have a setback to go, but I have a sense of where he's going to come, so yeah, I'm excited to see those guys get back, and when they do, they'll be part of this too, to make sure that they're going to, hit their stride and do the things that they do well, but no, it would be coaches, I would say, they'd never say, we got too many good ones. Like, you'll never hear any coach say that one for sure.
How does Cox's injury impact what you guys have at linebacker, and how do you kind of replace Just numbers wise, what do you do?
Yeah, and certainly anytime you're going to miss some time, it's a setback. And early on, you're just wanting to see guys develop, especially as a rookie and coming into the NFL and finding roles and how do you do things. And so sometimes that development takes place on special teams. And to say, okay, he's growing, and then you get a little bit of time on defense, and you get some more. So that development on the field will stop, but it won't stop off the field, where he'll continue to put work in to get there. As far as the groups go, we'll have people that will step into packages that he's done, but we'll certainly miss his presence and the value he was adding certainly on special teams too.
Dan, if we could switch gears for a minute, you spent a lot of time with Calvin Ridley. When you see that he's stepping away from the game to focus on his mental well-being, what goes through your mind, and how do you view y'all's role as coaches trying to help keep players' mental health?
Right, and I love Calvin, and I certainly have reached out to make sure on my end is there anything I can do, and that's why I've been involved for the last 5 years with MVP, which is a program called Merging Vets and Players, and so I was instrumental to help start the Atlanta chapter, and now I've been involved in the chapter now that I'm here in Dallas, and so oftentimes, there's just issues that come up that need some extra time and some space to do that. And so I'm proud for Calvin. If this is the time to, hey, I got to make some adjustments and find some help to do that, then I'm certainly proud of him for doing that. That's why I think programs like MVP are important and needed. And whether you're combat veterans or ball players or fighters, it's hard transitioning, and Calvin's not transitioning, so I'm not using that as the same example. But mental health issues, it's hard to read, and you can see when somebody sprains their ankle, but you can't tell oftentimes when somebody's hurting on the inside. And so having the courage to speak up and do that for guys like Dak and others that have done that around the league, or Hayden Hurst and now Cal, I certainly admire them, because by doing that, it may just point out the one person that needs that kind of help. A younger person looking up to, hey, if it's okay for Calvin to speak out and get help, I'm going to go and talk to somebody too. So it's important.
Was there
And
something
with a
in
group as
particular?
young as you have,
Was there
Finish.
something in particular that prompted you to get involved initially, or just generally thinking it's important?
With MVP?
Yeah.
Well, first for me, I recognized as a coach, you're there on the best days for a player on the job, and you're also there for the worst days as a head coach. And so I recognized being there for some of the worst days, hey, this might be the end of the line, and knowing that how difficult that can be to be, hey, not part of a team, I'm out of the uniform, what does that look like? And so that's why I thought it was so important, to merge these two groups, the combat soldiers who've been through a lot and are so connected to a team. The same thing with ball players and fighters. They heart, soul, everything into what they do. So when that changes, it can be lonely, it can be isolating, it can be just a really difficult time. So having other like-minded people together to go through this, sometimes the peer-to-peer counseling can be as important as counselor that you set up on your own. Just having people in space to talk to, having a locker room of people to visit with. I can tell you the amount of counseling that's taken place in a locker room through the years, but a lot.
with a group as young as you have, when you have a game like yesterday where the plan was clearly good and it was executed well, does that do more for their trust and faith in you, or your trust and faith in them?
Well, I already have my trust and faith in them is sky high. So I've seen the work they put in. I've seen how they want to execute. I see how important it is to them. So I think what it probably does is builds momentum to say, hey, we've been in some tough fights. We've got to keep going. And when you make progress, you can step on it again and go it again. And each time, maybe the ceiling goes a little higher of what your expectations can be. I was disappointed we didn't get the football yesterday. I thought, Randy had a good sack. Ball came out, but it went right back to him. And there'll be days where we don't, create takeaways as much as we'd like to. But you have to always, always, always be able to rely on your fundamentals and playing good, solid, rock-solid ball. And yesterday, I thought that was on full display by the guys. When adversity came, they were ready to meet the moment. And hey, we're down to take this thing as long as it goes. And that's why I was so impressed by the end of the game.
Do you feel that was your overall best defensive performance, even though you didn't force any turnovers?
Parts of the game, I would say, were, yeah. And then just, we've been in some close, tough games. So you build a little resiliency by going through those, and you never know how you're going to react until you get into those moments. And so Mike's done a good job of putting the team in a lot of situations through the spring, through training camp. We even do it during the week. But I think you have to be in those fights to gain the confidence. You can't just talk about it, you got to live it. And so I think by going through these tough moments and coming out on the other end strong, I think those are very important.
All right, thank you, Coach.
All right, you guys have a good one.